Okay, here we go. This will be a review of all of this semester's economics class in 22 slides, starting with slide 1. Scarcity. Remember from the beginning of the year, scarcity is when we have limited resources but unlimited wants. So scarcity is any time that our resources are less than our wants. And the scarcity forces trade-offs principle just says that when you have a lot of things that you want and you can't have everything, you have to make trade-offs. When you choose one thing, it means you're giving up something else. If we had unlimited resources, then we wouldn't have to trade off anything. We could have everything and everything else. But because there's scarcity, if we choose one thing, we have to give something else up. Remember that goods are tangible things that give us value, so they're usually things. They're sodas and phones and computers and papers. Services are intangible things that give us value. So they are things that people usually do for you, whether it's a car mechanic fixing your car, or a nail salon, or going out to a restaurant where they serve you and cook for you. And trade-offs are just the options that you don't choose. So if I choose to buy a burrito at Taco Spinetta, my trade-off is anything else I could have spent that $7 on. Everything else. So the Subway sandwich or the Big Mac meal or whatever it is, everything else I could have done with that money. Those are the trade-offs. The opportunity cost is the second most valuable trade-off. So of all the things I could have done with that $7 I spent on the burrito, what is the next best thing I would have done? And maybe I love Big Mac meals almost as much as I love burritos, so the opportunity cost of getting a burrito would have been the Big Mac meal. Or if I had the option to go to see two different movies, if I see one and not the other, then the one that I didn't see would have been my opportunity cost, because it's the next best option. And the idea that there's no such thing as a free lunch is the idea that nothing is free because everything requires a trade-off. So if a store is giving you something quote unquote for free, then somewhere someone is giving something up. Either the store is giving up a little bit of money so that you'll spend more money in other places, or you're giving up something that you don't realize. So there's no such thing as a free lunch. So anytime you're getting something for free, remember that someone is giving something up so you can have it. It might be you. Cost-benefit analysis. Remember that we as individuals try to maximize our utility. Utility is just how much benefit we get from something. So we want things to be the best that they can be. So we try to make the choices that give us the most pleasure or most utility. And costs and benefits are, costs are anything that reduce our utility, and benefits are anything that increase our utility. Costs are things that we don't like, benefits are the things that we enjoy. Marginal costs and benefits. Remember that marginal means on the next unit. So the marginal cost is if I have 5 slices of pizza and I eat the 6th one, how much worse am I going to feel? Or if I have 3 pieces of pizza and I eat the 4th one, how much better is that 4th one going to make me feel? How much utility is it going to give me? So marginal costs and benefits are the utility of the next unit. The law of diminishing marginal utility is the idea that the more of something we have, the less we enjoy each additional one. That's why it says marginal. Each additional one gives us less pleasure because we get full. So let's look at how we would calculate marginal utility or marginal benefit. So if we study for 1 hour, we get a 60% on the test. If we study for 2 hours, we get a 70%. So going from 1 hour to 2 hours, we gain 10% on the test. From 2 to 3 hours, we gain 8% on the test. From 3 to 4, we gain looks like 7%. From 4 to 5, we gain 5%. From 5 to 6, we gain 3%. And from 6 to 7, we gain 2%. So for each additional hour, we gain less and less benefit, probably because we're getting tired and we aren't learning that much more when we're studying. So that shows diminishing marginal utility. And you can calculate what is the marginal benefit of each hour. And the marginal cost is whatever you give up to study for 1 more hour. So if you study for 1 more hour, you're giving up sleep or you're giving up partying, right? That's the marginal cost. So here's the diminishing marginal utility graphed out. This is slices of pizza. And on the first piece of pizza, you get 10 units of enjoyment. You love that first slice. The second slice, 9 units. Third slice, 7 units. Sixth slice, fourth slice, sorry, you get 6 units. So you're still enjoying it. It's still pretty good. But by the 6th slice, you're like, I could take it or leave it. And then you can see slice 7 and slice 8, you're actually barfing. So you're not enjoying it at all. You're actually disliking it. Incentives. Incentives are anything that encourages or discourages behavior. And they can be monetary or non-monetary. Right? Monetary incentives are anything that has a clear dollar value. So a coupon at a store is a monetary incentive. We'll give you $1 off if you buy this box of cereal, right? They're giving you essentially $1 if you buy that cereal. Non-monetary would be any incentive or any benefit you get that doesn't have a clear dollar value. So a buy one, get one free is kind of, it doesn't have a clear dollar value. It's not saying here's this amount of money. It's saying, hey, we'll give you an extra one. So another non-monetary benefit would be if you get a job and they say, and you get a little bit of free time off, right? Paid time off. That would be a non-monetary benefit because they're not saying, here, we'll give you cash. They're saying, we'll give you this thing you can enjoy. Law of unintended consequences. You remember that video we watched with the economist trying to potty train his daughter, and he tried to give her M&Ms every time that she went to the bathroom correctly. But the problem was she figured out that if she went to the bathroom a lot, he would give her a lot of M&Ms. So she, instead of doing what he hoped, which was learn how to use the potty on her own, she ended up learning to use the potty just to get M&Ms. And then when he stopped giving M&Ms, she might just stop using the potty. And so the law of unintended consequences says that anytime you try to convince people to do something with an incentive, usually there are things that you don't want to happen but end up happening anyway. Economic systems, remember these? And each economic system that we talked about answers the questions of what should be produced, how it should be produced, and for whom is it produced? Who gets the stuff? And we had 4 different types of economic systems. Traditional economic systems, which is the economy functions just like how it always has, right? So in small groups, small societies, especially hunter-gatherers, if the women have always done the gathering and the men have always done the hunting, we'll just keep doing that. If your family has always produced clothes and the other family always farms, then you'll just keep doing that. And most of history has been traditional economic systems. You do what your parents used to do. Command economies ended up happening when back in the early in ancient times, when they got together in bigger cities, there would be a king or a leader who would say what everyone produces. You would just be told what to produce. Like, you're a farmer, you go farm. And we need more farmers? Fine, we're going to take these people and you have to farm. So command is just leaders telling how the economy what the economy should produce, how they should produce it, and who gets what. And usually the leaders were like, you're all producing for me. That was the early command economies. And modern command economies kind of formed with Karl Marx and his response to industrialization. He saw workers kind of getting screwed by business people because all these workers were moving to the city, and the factory owners were saying, well, I don't have to pay you very much because there are tons of workers, so I'll pay you almost nothing. You work for me all day, your kids work for me, and if you get injured, too bad, I'll just find someone else to replace you. So Marx said, no, the workers are the ones creating the value. The workers should be the ones that get the value. And Marx said that we shouldn't have owners who tell the workers what to do. We should have everyone come together and figure out what we should all produce for each other. And that came in 2 different kinds, socialism and communism. Socialism was usually the government says what everyone should do, and then eventually, Marx thought, communism would prevail, and that would be that everyone would decide together how everyone else would do things. And that's how the economy would determine what to produce, how to produce, and for whom. Everyone would get what they need, and everyone would give whatever they could. That is a modern command economy in Marx's idea. Market economies, with Adam Smith, said that, well, we should just let each person pursue their own self-interest. Because if everyone just tries to produce what they are good at and trade for what they need, then everyone's needs will be met as long as we don't interfere too much. So let people compete with one another, do what they want, and do what they're best at, specialize and trade with one another, and the economy will run itself. We don't have to tell people what to do. They'll figure it out on their own. And this idea that with people pursuing their self-interest, the economy would organize itself, he called the invisible hand. He said it's a metaphor for the idea that if people do pursue their self-interest, it's almost like an invisible hand that guides people to produce what society needs. And that's the metaphor. Technically, it's a simile, but you get the idea. The invisible hand is just the organization that happens by itself when people pursue their own self-interest and trade with each other. Mixed economies are what most economies these days use. We have some leaders, some governments saying, okay, here's what you can do and can't do, right? There's some regulation, there's some taxing, and the government spends some money, but then the rest is left up to individuals, kind of pursuing their own self-interest, inventing products and trading with one another, and finding their own jobs and picking their own majors in college. So there's a spectrum in the mixed economies of the world. Some economies are more towards the command side, where the government controls more of the economy. And some mixed economies, like the United States, they're more towards the market side, where the government controls less of the economy and people get to choose mostly what they do. There are 6 economic goals. Economic freedom means that people get to do what they want with their resources. I don't get taxed very much, so I can spend what I want on what I want, and I can start businesses with no or little regulation. Economic efficiency means that the right stuff is produced without much waste. And that just means, is the economy producing the things that people actually want, and is it using all of its resources well? Equity means everyone gets what they need. No one gets way less than they need, and no one gets way more than they need. Economic security means that we as an economy provide for those who need things, for those who can't care for themselves. And that could be welfare programs for the poor, or it could be retirement programs for the elderly. Stability just means that there's not going to be crazy changes. Like prices are going to be stable, jobs are going to be stable. Whatever the world is like, the economy is like one year, it's going to be about the same the next year. There aren't going to be like complete crashes, and there aren't going to be huge price changes. And growth is just that things keep getting better over time. The economy keeps growing, people can earn more and more money, and things get better over time. All right, advantages of trade. Specialization is the idea that everyone should focus on what they're good at and just do that one thing and get even better at that. And then division of labor, if everyone specializes and does what they're good at, they can trade with one another and they depend on one another, this economic interdependence. That if we divide up the labor, say one person makes shoes, one person bakes bread, one person grows the food, and they all trade with one another, they're each specialized, they divide up the labor, and they're dependent on each other economically. All right, absolute advantage is when one person or one country can just make more of something than another. So if we compare a baker and a farmer, the baker probably has an absolute advantage in making bread than the farmer because they are better at it. And the farmer is probably better at growing food than the baker because they are better at it. So each of them has an absolute advantage in whatever they can produce the most of. Relative or comparative advantage, I should say comparative advantage, means who gives up the least to produce something. So again, the baker, he probably couldn't do much else very well, so he doesn't give up very much when he produces bread. He has a comparative advantage and an absolute advantage in bread. Whereas the farmer, he can't probably do anything else quite as well as he does farming, and so he has a comparative advantage in farming because no one else is quite as good at farming as he is, and so he might as well spend his time doing what he is best at. And let's look at an example of how that would work. So an absolute advantage, if I and Mr. Wood are making grilled cheese sandwiches, I can make 6 grilled cheese sandwiches in an hour, and Mr. Wood can make 9 grilled cheese sandwiches an hour. So Mr. Wood has an absolute advantage in grilled cheese. Comparative advantage is when one person or economy has a lower trade-off to produce something. So let's look at the same thing, but now we can either produce grilled cheese sandwiches or tomato soup. Again, I can make 6 grilled cheese sandwiches an hour. Mr. Wood can make 9. But we can each make 3 tomato soups in an hour. So I can either spend my time making grilled cheese or tomato soups, and same for Mr. Wood. We can see that we're tied in terms of an advantage in tomato tomato soup, we can each make 3, but what do we give up when we make tomato soup? Well, if I produce 1 soup, I give up 2 grilled cheeses, right? If I produce 3 soups, I give up 6. So every soup I produce, I give up 2 grilled cheeses. Mr. Wood, for every 3 soups he makes, he gives up 9 grilled cheeses. So that means for every soup he gives up, for every soup he makes, he gives up 3 grilled cheeses. So we can see that I, Body Spargo, have a comparative advantage in soup. Even though we can make the same amount, I give up less grilled cheese when I make soup. So I have a comparative advantage. Mr. Wood does not. He has a comparative advantage in grilled cheese because he gives up very little soup when he makes a lot of grilled cheese. All right, and when countries specialize in whatever they have a comparative advantage from and then trade with one another, everyone is better off. So that's the gains from trade. Open markets are when there are no impediments, no blocks from trading with one another. So that helps because it keeps prices low because all the countries are producing what they're best at, and then they can sell those things at cheaper prices. And quantity and variety means that everyone gets access to more goods and services because they can access things from other countries and other goods from other countries. And innovation, it helps share ideas, and if we have more people working on problems, then we're just going to have better solutions to those problems. So open markets give better prices, more quantity and variety, and more innovation in the world. Trade barriers are anything that stop the free flow of goods or services across country borders. So tariffs, those are taxes on goods and services that cross borders. Quotas are limits, the amount of good or service that can enter a country, usually goods. And embargoes means you're not going to have any goods come from a country. So a tariff might be the United States adds an extra tax on any clothes that are produced outside of the country. So if China produces a t-shirt for $5, then the United States might put a tax on it, and U.S. consumers would have to pay $5.50 because 50 cents the tax is added on, and whoever is selling the shirt had to pay it, so they're going to make the consumers pay it. So tariffs are any extra tax added to things that come into a country. Quotas would be if China produces 5 million t-shirts, but the United States doesn't want to let them sell all 5 million, they would say, oh, well, you can sell 1 million t-shirts here. And that would help the t-shirt manufacturers in the United States because then they would have a chance to produce the other 4 million t-shirts that people want to buy. And embargoes, like the embargo that the United States has had on Cuba for the last 40 or 50 years, means that we don't allow our companies to buy anything from Cuba because we want to pressure them to do what we want. Protectionism is the idea that we'll protect our companies in the country by using tariffs, quotas, and embargoes to make it harder for other people to compete with us. And that helps protect jobs, but it also hurts the consumers because everything is more expensive and harder to get if we're not allowing other countries to trade with us. Free trade, meanwhile, means that our companies have to compete with all the other companies in the world, but our consumers get access to all those goods at cheaper prices. And globalization is the idea that across the world there is less and less barriers to trade and communication, and people can move, and goods and services can move freely around the globe. Demand. Quantity demanded is the quantity demanded at a specific price. So at $5, how many cheeseburgers do people want to buy? That's quantity demanded. How many cheeseburgers at $5 would people want to buy? Demand is the quantity demanded at all prices. So at every price, how many cheeseburgers would people want to buy? It's the whole curve. Demand schedule is just this. It's a list of prices and how many people would buy at each price. So for hot Cheetos and Takis, they would buy 15 if it was 50 cents per bag, but they'll only buy one if there was $2. And this is the graph form of that, right? At higher prices, people buy less, and at lower prices, people buy more. That's the downward sloping demand curve. Price is on the vertical axis, quantity demanded is on the horizontal axis. And the law of demand just says that as price goes up, people buy less, and as price goes down, people buy more. Elasticity of demand talks about how much does quantity demanded change when price changes? So if price goes up, do people buy a lot less or a little less? And if price goes down, do people buy a lot more or a little more? And the elasticity of demand is determined by a few things. If there are lots of substitutes available, then if price goes up, people just switch to something else. If it's a necessity, if price goes up, people still have to buy it because it's a necessity. And if the price relative to income is really high, say you're buying a laptop and they increase the price of a laptop by just 50%, then you might buy no laptops because that's a lot of money relative to your income. But if it's a candy bar and they change the price from $1 to $1.50, that's still 50%, but the quantity demanded won't change because it's still cheap, right? So those are the things that affect elasticity of demand. Shifts in demand are changes in the quantity demanded at all prices. So you're not just changing the price and it changes the quantity demanded. You're saying that something in the environment changed so that quantity demanded changes at all prices. What are the things that can cause that? Well, there are 6 different shifters for demand curves. I should say demand curve at the bottom there. Tastes and preferences can change. Maybe people want this new product more. Maybe Beyonce started using Galaxy phones, and so people want to buy Galaxy phones more. That means that at every price of Galaxy phone, people want to buy more of them. Or if it turns out that Galaxy phones cause cancer, people want to buy fewer Galaxy phones at every price. That's a shift. Number of consumers just means that if a lot more people start wanting to buy something, then there would be an increase in quantity demanded at every price. And if fewer people want to buy it, then there would be a decrease in quantity demanded at every price. If everyone gets a raise, then they're going to buy more at every price. And if everyone gets a pay cut, they're going to buy less at every price. That's consumer income change. Changing consumer expectations would be if people think that it's going to get cheaper later on, then they'll wait. They won't buy as much, and demand will shift to the left right now because they'll buy it later. If they think it's going to get more expensive later, then they'll buy it now because they know the price is going to go up. So that would mean that they're buying more at every price right now. Shifts to the right. Price of substitute goods. If you can get a substitute for something for cheaper, then you're going to want less of that main good. So if the price goes down on substitute goods, then the main good is going to be fewer people are going to buy it at every price. But if the price of a substitute good goes up, if Pepsi, they raise the price on Pepsi, then Coke, the demand is going to go up because more people are going to want to buy Coke because it's a substitute. And complementary goods are goods that you have to buy with the main product. So if you have a truck and gas prices go up, then the demand for the truck is going to go down because it's more expensive to drive that truck. But if the price of gas goes down, then the demand for trucks is going to go up because it's cheaper to have a truck. All right, supply. The quantity supplied means the quantity that people want at a specific price. So at the quantity supplied is the quantity that people want to supply at a specific price. So at $5, how many people or businesses want to sell cheeseburgers? How many cheeseburgers do people want to sell at $5? That's the quantity supplied. And the supply means the quantity supplied at all prices. So for cheeseburgers at all prices, how many do suppliers want to supply at all those prices? That's the whole supply curve. Supply schedule looks like this. At 50 cents, no one is selling cheeseburgers because they can't make any money. Same at 75 cents. But as we increase the price, more and more businesses want to sell cheeseburgers because they make profit. So supply goes up. This is what the graph looks like. As price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. And that is the law of supply. As price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. And as price goes down, quantity supplied goes down. Because as price goes down, profits go down. And no one wants to sell things if they don't make as much profit. We're going to skip elasticity of supply. And shifts in supply just means that conditions when there's a change in supply at all prices. Change in quantity supplied at all prices. Let's look at what some of the shifters in supply curve could be. The cost of inputs. If it costs suppliers more to produce something, then they're going to want to produce less of it because they make less profit. But if your costs go down, you want to increase the quantity supplied at all prices because your profits go up. The number of producers. If there are more producers producing things, then the quantity supplied at every price is going to go up because more people are supplying it. And if there are fewer producers, then the quantity supplied at all prices is going to go down. It's going to shift to the left because there's just less people supplying it. Conditions due to disaster. If a bunch of stuff gets destroyed, if the factory gets destroyed, then there's going to be less supply. Less quantity supplied at every price. And that's pretty much the only direction that goes. Producer expectations. If they think the price is going to go up in the future, then profits will be higher later. So they'll sell less now and sell more later. So selling less now means the quantity supplied goes down, shifts to the left at all prices. But if they think the price is going to go down, so their profits will go down in the future, they'll want to sell it now, so they don't have to, so they can make the higher profits now. And that would shift quantity supplied to the right. Technology. If it gets easier and cheaper to produce something, they'll produce more of it at every price. Government policy. If government pays people to produce things, they'll produce more of it. They'll supply more of it. And if government taxes or regulates more, they'll supply less of that at every price. Shifts to the left. Equilibrium price. So when supply and demand intersect, that is when there's an equilibrium point. And that tells you the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. The equilibrium price is the price where quantity demanded and quantity supplied are the same. So whatever that price is, maybe for cheeseburgers at $5, 500 people want to buy cheeseburgers at $5, and 500 people want to supply cheeseburgers at $5. So that at that price, quantity supplied and demanded are the same. Then exactly as many cheeseburgers get produced, get purchased. If we are below the equilibrium price, if the price is too low, then a lot of people want to buy it, but nobody really wants to sell it, so that's a shortage. And if the price is above the equilibrium price, there's a surplus. If the price is too high, nobody really wants to buy it, but everyone wants to sell it because they can make a lot of profit. That's a surplus. There's extra around. And there's always pressure to move to an equilibrium, because if there's a surplus, there's a bunch of extra around, people are going to want to cut their prices so they can sell it. And if there's a shortage, then people are going to want to raise their prices because there's a bunch of people who want to buy it. Changes in equilibrium. When the demand curve or supply curve shift, the equilibrium price changes. So if more is produced or less is demanded, then the price is going to go down. If people don't want to buy something, then the price will go down. And if suppliers start putting out a lot more product, the price will go down too. If there is less produced or more demanded, equilibrium price goes up. Because if there's less of a product around, people are willing to pay more, the price will go up. Or if everyone wants to buy the same thing, price is going to go up because a lot of people want to buy it. A price ceiling is the maximum price that people are allowed to charge. And that usually causes a shortage because they're not allowed to raise their price any higher. So people like low prices. They'll try to buy it, but not a lot of people are excited about selling it. It'll cause a shortage. A price floor is the minimum price you're allowed to charge for something, and it causes surpluses. Because if you're not allowed to lower the price anymore, then the price is probably too high. And nobody's going to want to buy it at that high price, but a lot of people want to sell it there because they can make a lot of profit. The role of price in the economy. There are 4 things you can think that price does in the economy. Allocative efficiency. It helps people it helps the people who want things get them. If everything was free, then people would just take stuff without even really caring about it. But because there are prices, people have to give up something in order to get something. And so they're more careful about what they spend their money on. So people who really like something will give up a lot for it, and they'll get that thing. But if people who don't really care about it won't be willing to give something up, so they won't take it. Productive efficiency is when prices help producers know what to produce and how to produce it. Because producers can tell how much people want to buy something because the price tells them that, they'll know whether or not it's worth making in the first place. So if people are willing to pay a lot of money for something, then producers know, all right, I'll make that. And by producers competing with one another, they figure out who's best at producing it and how they should produce it. Dynamic markets. Prices help consumers and producers respond to changes. If there's a shortage, then prices go up, and that tells consumers they better be more careful, and producers that they should bring in more supply because they can make money that way. And that helps even out the changes in the system. And if producers produce too much, then prices will help consumers know, hey, this should be cheap because there's a lot extra around. Prices help regulate those markets. Creative destruction just means that prices help give an incentive to people to create new things that people value. So because we have prices, we know that we can make profits on creating new things that people like. And that helps people have a reason to create new things. Okay, a few details about the U.S. economy. GDP means all the goods and services produced in a year, the dollar value of all goods and services produced in a country in a given year. Aggregate demand just means all the goods and services purchased in an economy in a year, and there's a formula for it, C plus I plus G plus NX. That's household consumption plus business investment plus government spending plus net exports. That's everything that's purchased in a year in an economy. And using this formula, we can estimate what the GDP was. Aggregate demand, everything that's purchased, can tell us roughly what the value of all the goods and services produced in a year. So they're usually treated as the same thing. But one side is the demand side, and the GDP is the supply side, everything that's produced. Inflation is a general rise in prices. And that happens usually when the money supply is too large. There's too much money in the economy. And if there's a lot of money around, then it doesn't really, then people are going to raise their prices because everyone's got a lot of money. So inflation is just when prices go up. CPI, or Consumer Price Index, is the idea of a basket of goods. The government measures the price of a bunch of things that people need to buy to measure inflation. They check the price of that basket of goods, like how much does rent cost, how much does car payment cost, how much does gas cost, how much does food cost. Measure it one year, and then measure the same stuff the next year, and compare the two prices, and that should tell you how much prices are either increasing or decreasing. The Fed, or the Federal Reserve, is the U.S. central bank. That's the organization that determines the money supply in the economy. Keynesian economics was founded by John Maynard Keynes in the early 1900s, and he had the idea that, well, if the economy is bad, just have the government spend money to get things started again. If people aren't buying enough, if businesses aren't investing enough, the government should just lower taxes to let people have more money to spend, or the government should spend money itself just to get the economy going again, to increase aggregate demand to get the economy going again. Monetarism was in the mid-1900s with Milton Friedman, who said that, we shouldn't be always using the government spending to get the economy going. We should use the money supply, because if we use the money supply, then we just make more money available in the economy, and people know best how to spend the money, and that'll stimulate the economy. Just make money more accessible, put more money into the economy, and let people increase consumption. Or if there's inflation, rising prices, just take money out of the economy and it'll slow down the prices. Because if there's less money in the economy, then producers will have to charge less money for their goods, so it'll bring prices down. And this was really important in the 1970s with stagflation. Stagflation is when there's high inflation and high unemployment. And so to control inflation, the government couldn't do a lot with spending and taxing. So Milton Friedman recommended that they just decrease the money supply to bring down prices. So that's what they did. Prices started coming down, and then they could help the economy. The Great Depression, though, was earlier, and it was just a problem of no one was spending money, and so people were losing their jobs. And the government needed to spend money to help increase aggregate demand and stimulate job creation. And that's what they did with the New Deal in the 1930s, as they spent government money to give people jobs and keep production up. Fiscal policy is the government's power to tax, borrow, and spend. An expansionary fiscal policy is when the government cuts taxes and increases spending so that there's more aggregate demand, because that helps create jobs. If there's more purchases being made in an economy, then businesses hire more people to keep up with those purchases. But because there's more buying in the economy, it increases prices. If a bunch of people are trying to buy stuff, then the sellers will increase their prices. That causes inflation. And usually, if the government is spending more money than it takes in, then it has a deficit, and that means it has to borrow money and increases the debt. Debt is how much money the government has had to borrow. Contractionary fiscal policy is when government raises taxes and decreases spending. They would do that to decrease aggregate demand, but at least the government would have more money to pay off the money it borrowed in the past. So they might need to do that if the debt is getting too high. Problem is, it slows down the economy because if they raise taxes, people spend less money because they have less money, and the government spends less money if they cut spending. That might increase the unemployment rate because there's less purchases being made in the economy. Monetary policy is a central bank's power to control the money supply. And they can do it using 3 different tools. Open market operations, where the Federal Reserve buys and sells bonds to control the federal funds rate. Federal funds rate is the rate that banks charge one another to borrow money. So banks charge each other interest to borrow money if they need to cover some of their expenses. And because all loans, including student loans and car loans and home loans, are controlled by this rate, by using open market operations, the central bank can control how high the interest rate is in the entire country. The discount rate is the interest rate that banks pay to borrow money from the Federal Reserve. Banks sometimes need to borrow money from the Federal Reserve or from each other because they are loaning out the money that they get from depositors. And if depositors want their money back, banks might need a little bit of money to cover what the depositors want out because the banks lent out all that money. So they could go to other banks, or they could go to the Federal Reserve to say, hey, I need a little bit of money. My depositors want to take their money out before my loans got repaid, so I just need some money to pay this depositor real quick. Reserve requirements are the money that banks have to keep in the bank and are not allowed to loan out. So the Federal Reserve can control these 3 things to try to decide how much money is able to be lent out into the economy. Let's talk about what each one does. So if the Federal Reserve wants to do an expansionary monetary policy, they want to increase the money supply so that they're increasing aggregate demand, but this will cause inflation, right? The more money that's out there, the higher the prices are going to go. To do an expansionary monetary policy, the Fed can buy bonds using open market operations, because if they buy bonds, then they pay money into the economy. They could lower the discount rate. They could make it easier for banks to get money from the Federal Reserve, and the banks will loan out more money into the economy, which increases the money in the economy. Or they can lower the reserve requirement. They could say, banks, you don't need to hold on to that money in the bank. You can just loan it out more, and that increases the amount of money in the economy. Contractionary monetary policy is when they decrease the money supply to decrease inflation. Prices are going up and we want to slow that down, so let's take money out of the economy to slow down those prices, to lower the prices. But if there's less money in the economy, it slows the economy down. It creates unemployment. Less jobs, but at least prices aren't going up. And this is the opposite of everything. So instead of buying bonds, they would sell bonds, because they sell bonds and they take money out of the economy for those bonds. They could increase the discount rate because that makes it harder for banks to borrow money, and then banks won't lend out as much money, so there's less money in the economy. Or they could increase the reserve requirement. Say to banks, no, you need to keep more money in your bank. You're not allowed to loan out as much. And that will limit the amount of money that goes into the economy. That is it. Hopefully this was helpful just as a very broad review of all of the topics we've covered in economics. I know it's been a lot. Feel free to ask me any questions about these things, and it's been really fun teaching you guys. I would love to hear any suggestions you have about things that you liked about the class, and things that you thought, well, actually, I've seen another teacher do it differently, and I like that better. I would love to hear that because I'd like to do a better job in the future. So thanks for being students, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help.